So, hello. You know Twomad, the guy who has rubber cement saggy fish flaps that I can wager a few toenail strippings he would serve you a Hawaiian fruit punch squeezed out of them herky perkies. I'm half expecting Shroud to shoot a three-pointer in Fortnite by bouncing on them damn tortilla launch pads. So, the dinosaur in the room today is that he's being accused of sexual assault. I've seen many takes, and a lot of them are people being conflicted. In a way, it's probably for the best. I heard some people saying that they are being a bit harsh on the accuser, but personally, it's probably for the best to stay critical about everything until both parties have said their piece, or we are just getting another quite cycle and it hasn't even been 3 fucking months since the last shit show. Contrary to the title, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer about the whole Twomad ordeal. Not yet, at least. So I'm just gonna look over what we have so far and to take away the things that are legit and others that could be a few assholes. You also gotta keep in mind, if you're familiar with Twomad's style of humor, there is a lot you could easily remove out of context, so we gotta establish that right off the bat. Because you can certainly make a case that a lot of these, let's call them the paradox of edgy and questionable humor, that would surely not make your eyes do jumping jacks out of your sockets when reading these hilarious zingers. Or we can stick to just vomit, because at least for me, this isn't what I would classify as a tear-jerking humdinger that will make your pubes flicker, but more what I expect from a mentally crippled handicapped crackhead that smells the invisible crumbs from a penny sitting behind a dumpster at Arby's. So in other words, if you think that's bad, I can't hold a Nerf gun to your head and eat your dog. However, framing it like something more sinister is a bit of a leap in my opinion. Now, I'm too lazy to skim through every piece of evidence, so I'm just going to use Bullblack's video as a basis. Also, the wet orange peel that I had written my password to my Twitter account fell down the sewage drain, so I can't log back in either way. Firstly, the main critique, that he sexually assaulted this girl. And we are introduced to the first major problem. There is no kind of proof correlating to it. I know some alias Brainiac asses all his chemistry test weeb with a Galaxy Wolf t-shirt will tell me that nobody just has a Yeti mic strapped to their left titty to record the audio of the double fisting happening when you're two deep throats in during the fucking, but not once did she bring up how it happened or how he even did it. And sure, you can argue that it was a terrible experience on her end, she doesn't want to discuss it in full gruesome detail, but if you're gonna drop a Hiroshima nuke on our heads, the least you can do is provide. She mentions he groped her, but again, she never goes into specifics, only testimony from her, a friend, and a video saying that Twomad confirmed it. And now, during the whole video, if you're an astute viewer, not once does he bring up the groping. He does admit he treated her like shit, which could be just general harassment like the spamming and him making weird jokes that he is referring to. Which, yeah, we aren't gonna let that slide. Some are quite offensive, let's be honest. But it is kind of a flimsy point to LARP on, considering this is the video she's tossing around as the Mortal Kombat finisher to any secondary opinion. When realistically speaking, this could be cherry-picked in many ways, including that she brings up the fact that he did drugs, and that's why he acts high. And to be fair, that wasn't exactly hard to figure out. However, if that's the case, you can't really put all the fault onto him. Man needs rehabilitation. It's clearly an addiction. So it's a bit distasteful to throw around all the shade on him since, according to Bella, the accuser, he was normal when he wasn't hooked on the sand. So is that really fair to use against this character? I'll leave that answer up to you, because I'm indifferent about it. I don't normally buy the reason that all bad can be absolved simply because they weren't their true selves during their hypnotized state, but it's still your fault regardless. But I can't say definitively that Twomad is 100% guilty either. One thing that does worry me though, that sounded awfully familiar to me at the very start of this whole Twitter and Navy war, was she doxed many things about him from the get-go and didn't care about doing so. I also recall seeing a tactic being used that was very similar in the Quiet drama, and what do you know? These coincidences do somewhat resemble each other. You could have made your point with the stuff you showed regardless of the private matters, so that was kind of unnecessary. You proved you had a mutual connection that went outside of just the internet, and showed his pattern of saying weird prerogative things being a frequent thing about him. So what do you achieve by yelling out the color of his underwear on the Jumbotron? Another thing I find quite suspicious was the timing of it all. He was already on everyone's crosshairs when he was making jokes about a dead guy, so he had Deathstroke, Deadshot, and the Zodiac Killer trailing after his ass with snipers pointed to his anal chute, and in the same hour gets accused of groping someone. She even states very clearly she's doing it now because everyone is at his throat, and that kinda rubs me the wrong way when she says that. I get being traumatized, but waiting 2 quantum years and only when he's in the heat of the moment you mention this now? Also, you're saying you were 18 at the time, and when this happened, and you still forgave him? And let's not get this shit twisted. If you're 18, you're not just a mindless troglodyte still learning how to brush your teeth. You're basically a full-grown adult. If you had an issue with it, you should have done what any sensible individual does, call the police. Or, just accept his apology 6 times and only accuse him now when the time is convenient. So you suddenly have a problem with it now but didn't prior because you were, as you said, a dumb 18-year-old French fry, and I don't buy that one bit. I might be overthinking ever so slightly, and it would be helpful to have a full structured story that's rounded enough that the average Joe like me wouldn't get too lost fetching for every 16 tweets coming out about this. Well, she said she's too lazy to do the bare minimum to keep it well organized so the information is easily digestible. At the very least, because, you're not accusing someone of borderline planting a SpaceX shuttle into your cleavage or anything. I'm sorry, you can't expect everyone to just scroll through your entire timeline just to find every piece of info and then ask people to unfollow him after, and in the same sentence yell out that you want this to end. Like, bitch, you lit the fire. You can't suddenly expect it to go away by dumping gasoline on it. If the intent is real, compile the whole ordeal, not sprinkle in new parts when questioned. It would remove any, singular piece of doubt. As I stand, I do think, yes, he is a bit of a weirdo. He most definitely harassed her, and those are the things I personally believe is definitive. But once again, that can change, so fingers crossed by the time this comes out. And since Buffalo KFC over here sends 54 tweets every millisecond, there is also a lot to miss out, and half of it is like trying to decipher salamandrian hieroglyphics. Again, I have to clarify, since I was basically just shitting on every single thing Bella was saying. I'm not saying ignore the evidence and just search for reasons to question, but remain neutral. These are only inconsistencies I've noticed that I haven't heard anyone bring up, and just some believing it because, the hag has red hair, until we see what Twomad has in store to defend himself. I'm very aware he did a stream, which you can watch if you want, and leave in the comments anything new that he brought up that I might have gotten wrong. So far, it's not looking too good for him in terms of a defense. He's mostly been having a meltdown, and some have taken that as him being guilty. I completely disagree. When you're already getting cancelled and then get served with a life-altering crime to this magnitude, it's a reasonable reaction. On that note, if he decides to pull the EVP route and pretend the allegations are real, it's just a fairy tale of the fucking night show of Jimmy Fallon, then you know who to believe. So subscribe and join Lucifer's anus, and bye. One last update before I go. So the overweight Goomba who looks like a melted brownie that joined up with the LMAO gang made a couple streams responding to the situation. That was beyond atrociously terrible. I would rather watch my grandma teach Brazilian stick bugs to play Black Ops 2 to help you complete the Easter egg in Nuketown than enduring any more of this drunken banshee trying to dribble out a single verb without choking on his own saliva. This entire painful, unhinged tirade was about as painful as watching Deacon Blackfire twerking on a Gober tube while reading out a family porno at an orphanage. So if you want to ruin your worthless days, head on over to the link and watch it. Other than that, I'm heading back to my coffin.